Life is difficult. How many of you agree with that statement? We have some hands up. Yes, yes. Life is difficult are the first three words in M. Scott Peck's groundbreaking book, The Road Less Traveled. How many of you heard of The Road Less Traveled? That was the book back in, I believe it was the 80s. I know I had read it at that point in my life. The reason he began the book with that line is that he felt that much of our suffering and unhappiness came from us not expecting our life to be difficult. People suffer when things don't work out the way they plan or expect. Many of us live our lives expecting it to be like a still pond of water. No ripples, no disruptions, just peace. And when the ripples come, we get upset. Why is the rain raining on my pond? Why is the wind disrupting my beautiful, peaceful pond? Everybody else's pond is smooth. Why isn't my pond smooth? Look at the people on TV. Their pond is very nice and smooth. Their lives are smooth. We don't expect disruption. We don't want disruption. We are resistant to whatever it is that disrupts our lives and our plans. We don't want whatever it is that shakes us, whether it's a job change, a relationship coming to an end, an argument, not being in the relationship we want to be in, the death of loved ones, needing medical treatment, a knee replacement, a hip replacement, cancer treatment, or resisting our own aging. I can say for me, many of those things have caused me pain in my life, and I fought them tooth and nail. There's a famous Buddhist equation that I think is brilliant. I think about often. And this is the equation: resistance equals suffering. The occurrences of our life that upsets us are the seeds. The occurrences that happen in our lives are the seeds of our suffering. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't get upset about the terrible things that happen in our lives or the things we don't want to occur. It is part of our human experience. But the extent of our experience of suffering is determined within us often, not just by the event outside of us. My dear friend Joyce often uses the analogy, I don't want to sit in my dirty diaper, she says. She says, I know, yeah, the poop is the challenge of life, and it's going to happen, but how long do I want to sit in it, she would say. Interesting. I like that. I just loved Paul's talk from last week. It was by far one of my favorites, and I've listened to it 2 times since then. If you haven't heard Paul's talk, go on YouTube and listen to it. It was the one about, there were a couple things. I'm going to go back. It was the one about anger in the 3 poisons. He shared in it a Buddhist story about the new Buddhist who happens to be a UU minister, which I thought was brilliant. And he pointed out in the story all the things he resisted and the occurrences of suffering he was experiencing. In it, he shared a piece from the Dharmapada, a couplet, and I'm going to repeat it again. He shared that the Dharmapada reads this way. Our life is shaped by our mind. We become what we think. Suffering follows an evil thought, as the wheels of a cart follow an oxen that draw it. And here is the couplet, the other part of the thought. Our life is shaped by our mind. We become what we think. Hatred and anger cannot put an end to hatred and anger. Joy follows a pure thought, like a shadow that never leaves. Interesting. Our life is shaped by our minds. We become what we think. Well, that's a simple teaching, right? So then maybe we could just change our minds and change our lives. And it sounds easy, doesn't it? Easy. We could all just decide that today, and tomorrow we'll all be suffering free. There won't be any difficulty. The suffering will disappear, and off we go. How in the world can we do it? How can we make a change? How can we lessen the pain of the experience inside due to the events that happen? How do we stop that cycle? There was a time in my life that I spent suffering. I mean, for me, I was really suffering. I was deeply depressed and extremely anxious, and it was happening inside me as a response to the events of my life that I could not change. I was in rough shape, and I couldn't quiet what felt like the endless dialogue in my mind. I was struggling. And during those years, I used to attend retreats. I don't want to go into the details of the problems in my life that were happening outside me. But during those years, I used to attend retreats by myself at a place called Pumpkin Hollow Farm. I loved this place. It was up in the Hudson Valley, and it was run by the Theosophical Society. So it was cool. It wasn't aligned to one religion or tradition, which always worked for me. And I signed up to go to a retreat that was in the tradition of Thich Nhat Hanh, who I loved. If you don't know who he is a renowned Buddhist master and teacher. And I thought, wow, this will be great. I'll get away from my home and whatever was going on there for 4 days. It'll be a great refuge. And when I arrived, well, I thought that there would be some teachings about Thich Nhat Hanh. There would be people to talk to that were like-minded, and a nice, calm distraction. I got there, and it was a Buddhist retreat that was formal. Everybody was a formal Buddhist doing about in complete Buddhist practice day and night for 4 days, including 20 hours a day of noble silence. And if I was to remain there, I would have to adhere to the practices of meditation and silence. Now, I had read a lot about Buddhist practice and meditation, and I had tried to meditate. And it felt almost impossible and very uncomfortable to me. It wasn't my thing. And last thing I wanted to do, aside from being in my home, was to be at this retreat, meditating and in silence for 4 days. I just wanted to get out of there, but I didn't want to go back. So I agreed, and I said, I'll stay. I'll stay for 24 hours, and if it doesn't work out for me, I'll leave. So I gave in. And to my surprise and amazement, the longer I stayed with these gentle people, being quiet and actually bringing my attention within myself, the better I felt. My anxiety lessened, and my pain began to soften. Being there did not change the problems outside my life that were occurring. But it changed me. After 4 days, I had settled into a different relationship with my inner self. It was different than one I had ever known, one where I had taken the time to meet. And I, like many people, didn't like the idea of being in silence. I was avoiding going inside myself because that's where the discomfort was. But somehow this 4-day weekend changed my life. It set me off on a trajectory to have the courage to go inside, to meet my fears and discomfort head on. In there, I met my peace, and I also met my open heart, a heart that could be bigger and more open than I thought I could have. I realized if I wanted to change my experience outside me, I had to change it inside me. After that weekend, I realized and I understood that I had 2 lives that I lived. The life that was outside us, where we interact with the world and our jobs and our relationships and our families, and an inner life where we feel and think. We think approximately 60,000 thoughts a day. Imagine. Sometimes those thoughts can drive our lives. And the Buddhists call these thoughts sometimes the monkey mind, the mind that constantly jumps from one thought to another without rhyme or reason. And all spiritual traditions offer different ways to tame that monkey mind. We know that mind. It's the one that wakes us up at 4 o'clock in the morning when we have a problem and won't let us go back to sleep. You've all met it sometime in your life, haven't you? But in that inner life, there is also a source, and it is the place where we experience love. In our inner life is also where we experience peace. It is our companion. It is who we live with. It is the lens of our experiencing our life. Humans are always trying to quiet the discomfort within us, whether we do it intentionally or unintentionally. The intentional ways, the unintentional ways we may quiet our inner challenges, our inner suffering, may be shopping, overeating, taking drugs, drinking alcohol, becoming lost in our devices, getting lost in something that doesn't serve us, something that is mindlessly taking us away. Addiction is just a distraction from what feels uncomfortable inside us. Now, I'm not saying we should never have a glass of wine and watch Netflix. I'm not saying we shouldn't have these times in our life. Our Western consumer culture, consumer-based culture, encourages us to feel less than. It makes us shop. It makes us drink. It makes us spend more time on our screens. It also promotes fear and lack. It actually promotes the discomfort within rather than reducing it. It encourages us to buy the Band-Aid to quiet it inside. So I think in this spiritual invitation I'm taking us to in today's talk is how we might intentionally quiet and discomfort, to quiet that experience we have inside. If we want to change our experience of our outer life, it comes by changing our experience inside us. Scientific studies of neuroplasticity shows that when we meditate, we are in effect changing the shape of our minds by flexing the muscle of attention. Now, I'm not saying we have to necessarily do meditation practice, but what I'd like to do is offer you options to consider in building an inside-out life. First, give your mind a rest. Every major religious and many spiritual traditions have practices that are intended to slow the pattern of the thinking mind and to move us towards more quiet within. Buddhists use meditation. Catholics recite rosaries. Christians sing songs of call and response, especially in the Black church experience in the United States. Hindus recite mantras and do kirtans, and they do yoga. Muslims have their 5 times a day body prayers, the salat. And in Jewish practices, they daven. And they also, at Shabbat, have songs that are also call and response. I know that many, or probably most of us, do not fall into a traditionally religious container. But I just wanted to invite us to be aware of that. There are loads of apps that are available right now on our phones and in different ways that could take us into a quieter place, that just slow down the thinking mind. If you have Netflix, there's something on there called Headspace. I think it's also an app. If you haven't checked it out, it is amazing. It could put you to sleep in moments. Really interesting. Which is often the challenge we have when we have a mind that doesn't quiet. There's also Calm and Insight Timer that are available free and very valuable. Second suggestion is to be intentionally grateful. A great a great practice for building an inside-out life, and something you could start your day with, is to consider what you are grateful for. Every morning, my first words is thank you. Thank you for another day, and thank you for a healthy body. It grounds me, and it makes me pay attention to what I have rather than what I don't have. You know, you can't hold two opposing thoughts at the exact same time. The mind just doesn't work that way. You can't feel gratitude and lack simultaneously. You can't feel joy and sorrow. It's not necessarily a practice that will completely quiet your mind, but it can certainly redirect it. And finally, try a mindfulness practice. Our meditation earlier today was a mindful meditation practice. Mindfulness has endless ways to be practiced. These practices help us to become more aware of what is going on inside us by focusing on our breath. It's a strange fact, but you cannot focus on your breath and think simultaneously. It just does not work. As we attempt to pay attention to our breath, it will provide a moment, maybe a split second of silence, of pause, and then automatically our mind will move into a thought. Once we've noticed we're thinking, if we gently, without judgment, bring our attention back to our breath again, it allows us to become aware of what is going on inside us, where our thoughts are going, where we are losing our power. When we pay attention to our thoughts, something extraordinary happens. We begin to move away from reacting to the events of our life to responding to the events of our life. So when I was talking about moving from reacting to responding, many of you have probably heard the famous quote by Dr. Viktor Frankl, and I'll paraphrase it here right now. Between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space lies our power and our freedom. How do we get to that space? How do we get to that space? Being mindful is a tool to take us to that space. Mindfulness practice does not have to be a long session of formal sitting meditation in a lotus position. It can be done walking, weeding your garden. You probably have had that experience, Judy. Or even washing your dishes. It doesn't have to be in a way that's uncomfortable for you. You could actually find a way that it is comfortable and you actually would enjoy doing it. Just as exercise helps us take care of our bodies, mindfulness is a skill that helps our minds. And just as we can build muscles by going to the gym, we build the muscle of our mind in this practice. So every Tuesday, I lead an alternating either morning or evening meditation. It's a half an hour and it's on Zoom and it's open to the public. And if you haven't joined us, I invite you to. If you'd like to know more about our mindfulness practice or meditation, come and join us. It's only a half an hour. It's brief and I walk it through it, and it's done in a simple way. And if you would like to know in more detail directly from me, reach out to me. You all have my info. It's on the website. If you are not part of the congregation and you are just seeing this video on YouTube, come on our meditations or reach out to me. The info is on the website. I welcome anyone to reach out. I'm happy to help whomever I can with this. Helping each other work our way out of the struggles of life is one of the greatest gifts we could give to each other. So my hope for you all today is that this information might help you or help someone you care about or someone you love. May the peace you uncover within you be yours to share with the world outside you. May it be so. If you like this video, please like us on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and click on the bell to be notified whenever we post a new video. Thank you.